What's up, everybody? Welcome back. Officially, we're back. I'm so happy. This is awesome, guys. Welcome to the 21st episode of the Morello Show. Of course, I'm your host, Kyle Morello. Uh, First one here with three guests, so this is going to be a little interesting, but we are going to make it work. With me once again, my friend Jake Copestick. Cope, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Good to be back. I actually just saw Duke get upset by Virginia, so I wish I was doing a little bit better and didn't have to see that. But nonetheless, always good to be back with you, my brother.
It's a tough scene. I don't feel any sympathy, but it's a tough scene.
Yeah, sorry about what we did to you on Saturday. Your
Yeah.
Tar Heels. Sorry about that. Guess you guys forgot to show up.
I'm a little Carolina fan. I haven't been following as much this year, but yeah, that's a rough one. But anyway, and with us for the first time, my friend, my coworker from NFL Films, Jordyn Bennett. JB, how we doing?
I'm doing great, man. Appreciate you for having me on. Don't feel any sympathy for Duke right now. ACC went to Wake Forest, man, so that's where I'm rocking. But yeah, man, thank you for having me on. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Glad we share the Duke hatred. That happens. All right, well, let's get into it. Listen, fellas, it's Super Bowl week. Is there anything better than this? Maybe except for March Madness. I don't think so. But we have a lot to talk about. Obviously, we have a matchup of the 2 4 seeds in each conference. We have the Los Angeles Rams, who will be the home team playing in their home stadium, second consecutive year that's happened. And we have the Cincinnati Bengals, led by Joe Shiesty. We know all about that. So we got a big game coming up here. Now, one of us has played football before, and that would be JB. I played a little bit in college and high school and whatnot. So JB, I'm gonna start this with you. Obviously, you have not played a game as big as the Super Bowl, but I would assume you have played in some big games in your athletic career. Take me through kind of the preparation mentally for a player going into a game like this that means so much.
I just think at this time you kind of get into that season. One, it's a long season. You got to think this season's been extended. My school, top 5 Division II school in the country. So we were always playing late, and by that time we're hitting 15, 16 games. And that's taxing. That's a lot, but you want to win and you go through it. So I couldn't imagine doing, 18 games and then playing 3 or 4 more. But you're locked in, you're focused, man. It's, if you look at a lot of the interviews, everybody's just there. Big Eagles guy from Chester, PA. So, definitely always repping Philly. And I just watched Alshon Jeffrey's interview from a couple years ago when the Eagles won the Super Bowl. And he was like, why are y'all talking to me right now? Like, I'm here to play football. And that's what it's about. Like, man, I'm excited to see some people win. And I know between Stafford and OBJ and then just that dog that the sensible boys in Cincinnati got right now. Like, man, it's going to be nice. It's going to be a special game.
Absolutely. That's kind of want to get into a little bit more with you, Cope. Like, we have such an intriguing matchup with Stafford and OBJ and the Rams, who, I mean, obviously some of the Rams have been in the Super Bowl before. They were there a few years ago against the Patriots, but a lot of these guys have not won a ton in their career. And on the other side, you have one of the youngest teams in the NFL with Burrow and Chase and everybody like that. How do you expect that kind of inexperience in the Super Bowl and kind of late in playoffs to kind of play out in this game?
Well, I'm sure they're going to start off and they're probably going to be a little rocky to start. It's a huge game. They're going to be in a huge stadium. It's very loud there. A lot of people are going to be there. So I'm sure there's going to be a little bit of rust that they got to shake off a little bit. They've been off for 2 weeks. They're going to be flying into LA, spending, as Jordyn was saying, there's a whole bunch of other stuff leading up to the game. It's like you're there for a bunch of days doing media stuff and doing interviews and just doing a bunch of press when you just want to play the game. So I'm sure they'll start out a little bit slow. Obviously it's a big moment. It's LA. It's a huge stadium. So I'm sure they're going to be maybe a little bit tight. They're going to have to get loose and kind of get into the game a little bit.
Absolutely. I mean, listen, it is quite literally their Super Bowl. So there's probably going to be some nerves on both ends, but I think that's kind of like the beauty of, having people who aren't Mahomes and Brady and Roethlisberger and Manning and everybody like that consistently in the Super Bowl. Like, you get new people in the Super Bowl and it's like, you almost kind of like that they have jitters. I mean, like, would you guys say that's accurate? Like, you kind of like how they are inexperienced, but like they're amped up at the same time, like they're ready to go for this biggest game of their life.
No, I love that. I mean, I think from, the outside looking in, you would think everybody has that jitters. But it's definitely more excitement. You got to think, one, Joe and Jamar just won a national championship, 2 years ago? Like, they're used to this and they love this. And then you got to think about the guys who are playing for it over on the LA side. You got Stafford, who's been itching for just a good team for the last couple years. And I think if he's proven nothing this year, like this is all he needed. He just needed somebody to throw to. He needed linemen. And then a guy like OBJ, who, he hasn't been there, but that's all he's ever wanted is just to win. Everybody kind of gave up on him and slept on him. So I think, he's had so much fight, but there's just so much dog on both sides. Like, I don't see that as more jitters. I just see everybody is just ready to go for this one.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that as well. There's a lot of big time players here, obviously. I mean, you don't make the Super Bowl if you're not a big time player, but you've Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. Obviously, these last couple of years they've been hyped up so much. They've accomplished so much. They played in so many big games. Joe Burrow is literally at a basically 100% hit rate on big games since the Alabama game where they had to play in LSU. Devin White was suspended for the first half of that game. He literally hasn't come up short in a big spot since then. OBJ is a big time player. Stafford's been yearning not only to get to this point, but just to get into the playoffs and to have some type of success. Cooper Kupp's having one of the best seasons that we've ever seen. So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of big time players here, and I'm sure they're relishing the moment to play on such a big stage, to play in LA in such a big stadium in front of a huge crowd like that. So, yeah, I'm sure that there might be some jitters, but at the same time, you have a bunch of guys that this is everything that they want right here.
Absolutely. And Cope, you mentioned the stadium, and we'll boomerang this back to you to start. Obviously, I mentioned, when we were getting into this, that this is the second straight year that a team who's in the Super Bowl is hosting the Super Bowl. Obviously, we had the Bucks at the Ray J last year, and now we've got the Rams at SoFi. How do we think them hosting will play out? Obviously, the Bucks have a pretty good home field advantage. You've seen that not just in the Brady era, but even before. SoFi has kind of been notoriously not so much of a home field advantage. You've obviously, you've heard Stafford going over his helmet to here for his home crowd on offense. It's not a good thing. How do you think this is going to play out with LA playing in their home stadium?
I actually don't think it's going to be that big of a deal at all because, like you were saying, the Rams have to go silent count in their own stadium because there's so many other fans and opposing fans that will come into the stadium. But also, like, if you look at some of the gate prices to get in, and it's $2,000, $3,000, up to $7,000 a ticket just to be able to get in the place, just to get in the gate. It's a lot. It's a lot of money for LA fans to try and go there. It's a lot of money just anyway to spend that much money on a ticket for a game. So I really don't even know what to expect from either sides if they're going to have a lot of fans going out simply because it's just not affordable. So it's probably, and you see all the time with the Leonardo DiCaprio, all these great athletes going to SoFi as well. So I'm sure you're going to see all the stars out in all those suites there.
And I think that's the biggest thing right there. You look at the stars and everything. Coach, we brought up a great point with the pricing of it. No normal person is going to be able to afford that. The Super Bowl, an all-star game, whatever the case may be, it's a celebrity function. I mean, as far as the Rams go, you might catch YG in the LA jersey, but I mean, it's going to be pretty even. There's going to be a bunch of people who can afford to do it. And it's the Super Bowl. As much as you would like to say, oh, they have a home field advantage, nobody's ever home in LA. It's a bunch of people who have money that end up moving to LA, or a bunch of people who are in that field of entertainment and doing everything. So I do think it's more of an even ground than playing at Tampa Bay. Will it be nice for LA to play at home because they're used to it? For sure. But I mean, I think it's more even than any other home matchup would be.
Fair. Very, very fair. I mean, listen, I think the only thing that would, in my opinion, matter is the comfort level for the Rams. Obviously they're going to be, and I think the NFC is a home team this year. So I think they're going to be using their home locker room. Obviously, they don't have to take a flight like Cincinnati does. They don't have to practice in an unfamiliar place. So I think that kind of are factors a little bit. But, like you guys are both saying, I don't really think the actual fans like home field advantage is going to be a thing. Obviously, because people have been buying Super Bowl tickets for well in advance before they knew the Rams were playing too, which is the other thing. Those Super Bowl tickets are crazy though. Have you seen them? Damn.
Yeah.
Those are
out of my price range, man. But I heard they're coming with an NFT if you buy the ticket. So
that's true. That's true. I mean, I don't know a whole lot about NFTs. Maybe we'll have to have an NFT guest on here sometime. I don't know how the logistics of that going to work, but we will figure that out. But more for the X's and O's, kind of the actual matchup of the game. I want to hear your guys' opinion, and JB, we'll start with you. Give me one X factor in this game that maybe the national media is not talking a whole lot about. Obviously you got Burrow, Stafford, Jamar, Kupp, OBJ. Give me one person that maybe isn't exactly on the radar, but could make a huge difference in this game.
Definitely not necessarily a not on the radar person because we all know him. Hands down, probably the best defensive player in football, if not the best player in football. Aaron Donald is who it is, and if you look at that 49ers game, the biggest thing is to run away from Aaron Donald, hit him with double, triple teams, do all those type of things. And Aaron Donald never got to have that moment through the entire game. But that last interception, he forced that interception. He hit Jimmy G, and that changed the game right there. So, that is the person you definitely want to look out for. But my guy right now is really Eric Weddle. Who comes back after doing God knows what, living the time of his life, just to come back and play 2-3 weeks of football in the playoffs and then go to the Super Bowl. And then most people don't know he led that game in tackles against the 49ers, so it's a guy who's very capable of still playing. So with him back there as safety, we obviously know Jalen and Jamar, that's the matchup that we're all living for and waiting for. Jalen's not going to take that double team that anybody else, his ego's too big. So that's going to be that one-on-one out there to see what Jamar is really about. But yeah, it's all going to be about containing Aaron Donald. If Joe Burrow takes enough hits from Aaron Donald, it's going to be a problem for the Bengals.
So I want to go with what Jordan said. I love that he brought up Aaron Donald, but I'm actually going to go. I think Von Miller is going to be a really key piece in the Super Bowl. And a lot of that is going to have to do with Aaron Donald. We know the Bengals have been getting, a ton of hate this year and last year about their offensive line. It's underperforming. Joe Burrow gets sacked 9 times, still pulls out a playoff win. But Aaron Donald's there's going to be a lot of attention on him. He's going to be double and triple team. But I'm looking at the matchup of Von Miller versus Isaiah Prince on the edge. Isaiah Prince just struggled at right tackle this year, and it was only actually 6 years ago to the day Von Miller made Mike Remmers look like a turnstile in the Super Bowl and ended up winning Super Bowl MVP. So if all that attention is on Aaron Donald, you leave Von Miller one-on-one with Isaiah Prince, who struggled this year in the playoffs and throughout the regular season. And I think Joe Burrow he could have Von Miller, Donald, whoever it is, in his face the whole game.
Now, Cope, I agree with you partially that I think Von Miller will have a very good game, especially with, the doubles and triple teams we had talked about. But how did I know that the man with the Shannon Sharp jersey hanging in his room was going to pick Von Miller for MVP? How did I know?
I also wanted to put in there that 6 years ago to the day that
I
the
know.
Broncos did win Super Bowl 50. So I had to throw that in there.
Believe me, I was well aware of that mention. So don't you worry. But for me, kind of going off what JB said a little bit about Jamar versus Jalen, I actually think T. Higgins is going to be the X factor in this game. Sleeper for Super Bowl MVP, might I add. But listen, he was the number 1 receiver last year. Him and Joe Burrow developed really good chemistry before Burrow got hurt, obviously. You're bringing Jamar Chase, who, obviously they have the LSU connection, and he's had an incredible rookie season. He might win Offensive Rookie of the Year. He's definitely up there, him and Mac Jones. But for me, like, T. Higgins is that glue guy that, you're going to put the best cornerback in the game on the best receiver and on the Cincinnati side and Jamar Chase. So that leaves T. Higgins, who's a very good receiver. Like, he'll get more opportunities to get the ball thrown to him. And I think Jamar Chase is more of a big play receiver. Obviously, he's going to have a lot of catches too, but I feel like T. Higgins is more of a volume receiver too. So, if they use him to move the chains, and they try to take the shots with Jamar every once in a while, obviously going to hand the ball off to Mixon. I don't know if Uzan was playing. We'll have to update that as we go. But I think T. Higgins is primed for a big game. I think, especially with the pass rush that we talked about, or at least the defensive line that we talked about for the Rams, they could stop Mixon a little bit too. Like, I think T. Higgins is primed for a big game. So look out for that in the Super Bowl. Now, JB, we're going to go back to you for a second because you're an LSU guy. So I want to get your thoughts on this. Who do you think will have the better game, going back to what we were just talking about, Jamar or OBJ as your LSU boys?
Oh man, I think attention is going to be focused on Cup. We know that's going to happen. And OBJ has been the OBJ that we've known in the past, which I personally, as a LSU and OBJ fan, I love because everybody, really counted him out and thought he was done, but he's clearly balling. When it comes down to it, I think Jamar will have the bigger game. I think OBJ needs to have the more important game, though, being that second guy behind Cup. This is a team, like I said, who's going to prepare for him. Turnovers-wise, the Bengals defense has been unbelievable. this playoff. They played well during the season, but they're playing at an even higher level right now. And I think this is going to be the time for OBJ to not have that number one matchup and to take advantage of it.
It's very fair, very fair. And then Cope, for you, I have an interesting one I actually just thought of. We're talking a lot about guys who could win each of these teams the game. Is there anyone on the starting 11 on both sides of the ball, either team, that you think has the potential to lose either one of these teams the game?
Wow. I think I'd have to go back and I'd really have to say Isaiah Prince. I don't want to keep harping on Von Miller and all that, but look, we know the Rams have the better line than the Bengals going into this game. Both teams have strong defenses, but that Rams defensive line is very good with Donald and Von Miller and Leonard Floyd on it. So with so much attention having to go to Aaron Donald so that he doesn't wreck the game, I'm telling you, man, I'm going to be looking at Isaiah Prince and seeing if he can block Von Miller one-on-one, because all it's going to take is Von Miller to beat him once or twice, potentially get a strip sack, and that could totally flip the course of the game. So I'm going to go Isaiah Prince for the Bengals because we know they have the weaker offensive line and the Rams are going to be hungry to get after him. And all it's going to take is, a forced fumble at the end of the game. Maybe there's the play early that if there's a sack that ends up killing a drive for Cincinnati. So I'm going to go Isaiah Prince. He's going to need to have a huge game blocking Von Miller to make sure that nothing bad happens to Joe Burrow that could lose him the game.
And that's the key. I mean, listen, obviously Joe Burrow's taken a lot of hits this postseason. He was sacked 9 times against the Titans. They ended up winning that game. He was knocked down. Actually, you know what? He was kind of protected like a decent amount against the Chiefs. I was going to say he was knocked down a lot. He really wasn't that much. Obviously their O-line's not great, but it was a decent game for them. But, they won both those games. I think they've proven they can win either way. I think the much preferred way is to not have Joe Burrow on his butt the entire time. So that'll be another big matchup. One more Super Bowl question before I hear you guys' predictions, and then we switch gears. The Rams backfield has been kind of interesting this postseason with Cam Akers coming back. Obviously, Sony Michel, they traded for him in the offseason. He's had a decent year, not a great year, but a decent year. JB, we'll start with you. How do you think the Rams timeshare kind of plays out in the Super Bowl? Do we think we see more of Cam Akers taking more of a bell cow role? Wow. Do we think Sony Michel gets his snap share in there? How do we see this playing out?
Well, no, I love that you brought up Cam Akers because that was actually my answer to your last question with Cope. I think it really depends on Cam. I think both teams, they got to worry about their secondary. But Cam has played a huge role since he came back. Really been lighting it up and taking on that workload. Love Sony Michel. I think he's valuable, just not your every down guy. Cam has clearly proven that that's him. But again, the Bengals defense have been unreal during this playoff. So, I want to see that matchup with Cam versus them and see how he really takes over. But if he has a good game, that's going to be the difference maker. Like I said, they're going to be watching out for the pass. So if Cam can open that field up, it'll definitely cause some problems.
Going off of that, I would agree 100% with Jordan. Only thing is, this is Super Bowl. It's this one game for all the marbles. So if Cam Akers comes out hot, obviously we all expect him to get more carries than Michelle anyway. But if he comes out and he breaks off a couple runs and he's able to get into some space, get some first downs, and not get stuffed at the line, I see Sean McVay. Look, I know he's coming off the knee injury and everything, but I think he's worked back to, as good a strength as he can be. And if he's hot, keep giving him the ball. No reason to sub him out. One game for all the marbles. If he's hot, if that's what's working, keep letting Cam Akers run then.
I absolutely agree. I mean, he did have those 2 fumbles against Tampa, which is a little concerning, but I think he's the better of the 2 backs, obviously. And he's going to get his touches. And I think that is another X factor in this game. As long as he can hold on to the football and he's productive, I mean, that's going to be a golden opportunity for the Rams. So we will see what happens with that. All right. Predictions. Let's go with Cope. We'll start with you. I need a prediction of the winner and Super Bowl MVP. What do you got for me?
Okay. So my heart really wants the Bengals to win this game. Would love to see them win because they haven't had a Super Bowl or, any sort of success in a really long time. But I'm going to go with the Rams here to win the game. Ever since they lost to the Patriots, they've been wanting to get back here. It's at their own stadium. This is Stafford's finally his moment to be able to. I don't really think he needs to validate his career, But if there's any doubters out there that still are saying he needs a ring, he needs to win the playoffs, this is where he can do it. OBJ is going to want to be proving people wrong now that he's there. So I think the Rams are going to win the game outright. Would love to see the Bengals win, but I feel like this is the Rams' time. This is a great team that they have. They went all in, getting OBJ, getting Von Miller. So give me the Rams to win the game. And then ultimately, I think Stafford's going to get MVP. I see him having a big game. I see a lot of points being scored. Even with two great defenses, I think this is going to be an entertaining game. A lot of points scored. So give me the Rams to win and give me Stafford to be your Super Bowl MVP.
Do you have a score?
I can't think of one off the top of my head, but I
Okay.
love points. Love points. I think it's going to be a great game. I think it's going to be entertaining. It's two quarterbacks that, obviously haven't been in the Super Bowl before. So I love it to be a great game going back and forth.
All right, JB.
Yeah, man, this is hard. LSU conflict of interest. You got OBJ on one side, Jamar and Joe over on the other, man. But yeah, I'm rocking with Cope on this one. I definitely think it's the Rams. The Bengals are going to be a problem for years to come. The AFC in general is about to be wild if you look at it. But the Bengals, young guys who have it, not counting them out, they could still definitely win. But I think just with Stafford, he doesn't need this win to solidify who he is. But I know that's a big reason why he wanted out of Detroit. That's not something that we as non-casual fans needed. Casuals might need that, but, people who really know Stafford knows he can play his butt off. But I think for him, he needs this win. And then OBJ too, that's all he's been talking about, chasing a ring. And then Aaron Donald, he's been there before. Von Miller, you bring in these guys who's really done it. Eric Weddle's back. You gotta believe in something to come back after sitting on your couch and doing. Well, I know exactly what he was doing, but just being on his couch doing what he was doing for a couple of months and want to come back. So I got to give it to them. Your MVPs are either gonna be Stafford for sure or Cope. I think I'm gonna rock with you on this one and give you Von Miller. As much as I think Aaron Donald is gonna be an X factor, I think Von Miller has that, like you said, that one standout play that's gonna be a turnover game changer right there, and I think that's why he's brought in. But it's definitely going to be not a blowout, definitely thinking 28-21 along those lines. So we're going to see, man. I'm excited.
Me as well. For me, I think I'm with you guys. Like, as much as I want to see the Bengals win, I do really want to see a Stafford win too. I have some Detroit Lions fans from when I was in Michigan, and they're rooting for him, and I'm rooting for him. I think Stafford's a great dude, and I think he's endured a lot of losing in Detroit, and I think he deserves it. And he's also a damn good quarterback to go on top of it. So I think Rams win 31-27. I think your Super Bowl MVP is Aaron Donald. I think he's just going to wreck that offensive line. Cope, as you mentioned. And yeah, I mean, it's going to be a great game. I'm really excited. They're going to win in their home stadium. Second year in a row. Someone's going to do that. And yeah, it's going to be a good game. All right. Well, we're going to switch gears a little bit at the end here real quick. More NFL, though. We are going to talk about some head coaching stuff. There's been a lot of openings, and now all of them are closed as of today. Dennis Allen got hired by the Saints, which I think we were all kind of expecting. They're a great defensive coordinator. Cope, we'll start with you. Is there any hirings or firings, I guess we can talk about too, that were surprising to you?
So I'm going to have to go with my Denver Broncos here. I love the hire they made with Nathaniel Hackett. You look at his coaching style, his personality, as opposed to Vic Fangio's. Vic Fangio, widely respected defensive coordinator, been in the league a long time, been an assistant coach for a very, very long time. Finally gets the head job in Denver. He's a quiet guy. Not to say he's not good presenting in front of people, but doesn't have that charisma, that personality to be able to captivate a bunch of football players that are making 7 and 8, maybe 9 figures. So they bring in Nathaniel Hackett. He's got a ton of energy. He's able to communicate the playbook very well to the players. Aaron Rodgers went to bat for him last year when he was getting interviewed for the head coaching job with the Falcons. So I love the hire that Denver made. I think they can potentially get Aaron Rodgers out of this, but not even talking about that, solely focusing on Nathaniel Hackett. He's got a ton of energy. He's got a great personality. He's going to be able to connect with the players. I think he's going to be the guy that's really going to bring some mojo back to the Broncos, unite the organization. I feel like that's exactly the type of leader that they needed to bring in.
JB, how about you?
No, I love the Broncos pickup. So that was a really good one. But I think for me, it's not necessarily who was hired, but who wasn't. in a sense, and excluding all of the other craziness that's going on in coaching hires right now in the NFL. I really wanted to see Vegas stick with their guy, their interim coach, Rich. He was there. Players absolutely loved him. If you look at the press conferences and watch Max Crosby and Derek Carr talk about this man, they really genuinely loved this guy. And I mean, I think for me, it's always going to be more player loyalty than anything, and that's speaking from a player's perspective, and even in the sense of, the race thing with all the coaches going on right now. You always want to, as a player, I've always wanted a coach who I can relate to or feel comfortable with. Especially coming from that environment, you're not just looking for someone to be, call your X's and O's. You're looking for a friend, a mentor, hell, for some of us, even father figures. When you have those type of people who had that much love for that man after he came in and took what looked like a sinking ship and brought it back up and, guided it there, I would have really liked to see him in Vegas still, but, that's the name of the game in the NFL. So it's always interesting, but yeah, that would probably hurt me and shock me the most.
JB, I kind of agree with you. I mean, that's not the one I was going to say, but I did love watching Rick Bisaccia coach that team this year after Gruden resigned. Like you said, like I thought the players really rallied around him. They made the playoffs. They were good. They nearly beat the Bengals. Like that was a good game in the wild card round. So I was kind of upset. I mean, the Packers got him as their special teams coordinator, which great for them. Their special teams is why they're not probably in the Super Bowl, if we're being honest. So I'm happy for him that he's moving on to the Packers and he's going to coach that special teams unit. But I'm also kind of sad that he's no longer the Raiders coach. But my pick, and I've been saying this for 3 or 4 years now, this is an absolute travesty, but Eric Bieniemy needs to be a head coach. There's no reason why Eric Bieniemy is not a head coach in this league. Andy Reid has a great head coaching tree. That's another one that's going to be at some point, I think, hopefully a head coach, but I'm shocked that he hasn't. Obviously, JB kind of touched on the race things with coaching that's happening right now. I can't say whether or not that is the reason, but it's kind of a disgrace that that's even in discussion for it in the first place. But besides that, he's just you look at the Chiefs offense, obviously Andy Reid has a lot to do with that, but he trusts Eric Bieniemy. He, goes to Eric Bieniemy for advice and play calls, and so does Mahomes and everybody else. So I've been saying it for years. It was him and Saleh for the longest time, and I'm glad that my Jets got Saleh because I loved him. And obviously this year didn't go great, but I'm optimistic for the future. I think we're building something. But to go back to Bieniemy, I mean, it's an absolute disgrace that he's not a head coach. And hopefully next year, I've been saying this since 2018 at this point, but I really do think hopefully next year. But I guess that's just nature of the game. There was also one that kind of surprised me that he did get hired, which was today. Lovie Smith is a head coach again in the NFL. How do we feel about that? I mean, obviously he was at Illinois and they were not that great, and he was defensive coordinator at the Texans last year, and they weren't that great, though their roster stinks. But how do we feel about that? JB, we'll start with you.
I think I love it. Got to watch the Texans a little bit closer this year with you and I working so deeply in that conference and having absolutely nothing. And as Eagles fans, we watch Campbell Grugier-Hill go from this guy who, as Eagles fans, he was just, a linebacker filling a spot. But he went there and he's getting interceptions and been put in the right positions to do so many different things. I think a lot of it has to do with the timing of it. Somebody had to make the decision of, having a black coach in a position to do something. I do believe that may have had a little bit to do with it. But at the same time, I hope that it's somebody who genuinely is there, gets his opportunity to create around that defense that could do something. They have some guys on their team. Like I said, Campbell Grugier-Hill has been doing his thing. Justin Reed's down there, and he's doing an amazing job. So, I just want to see what he can do. Just at least give him the opportunity. Kind of more concerned with Doug Peterson being the new Jaguars coach than anything. But, yeah.
So going off of what Jordan said, first things first, I just hope that Lovie Smith gets a fair opportunity to be the head coach there. Seeing David Culley get fired, he was given nothing to work with. He didn't have a first-round pick. He was given a bad roster. No control of a first round pick, all these picks that have been moved around from Bill O'Brien. So I just hope that Lovie Smith gets a fair shot. I think this is a good hire. It's a dumpster fire of an organization, if we're being honest, with the ownership and everything. I just hope he gets a fair shot. There's not a whole lot working for him in his favor, but I do like that he got a head coaching job because he had to leave Illinois to work with the Texans last year. And then it looked pretty bleak. It looked like he was going to have to find another job after David Culley got fired. So good for him that he's getting another head job. He's at least going to have a little bit of stability in Houston, hopefully. But I'm pulling for him. Like I said, with the talent there, it's just not as talented as other rosters. They are going to have, a top pick this year and have control of their own first round pick. So I hope he runs. Lovie Smith runs with it. He does well. But I really just hope that he gets a fair opportunity because it's not a whole lot working for him as it stands right now.
Oh yeah,
No, I
the Colt.
think that's the biggest thing for anybody. Like that's what we want, have that chance because look at Zach Taylor, what he was able to do. So like just watch what he was able to do and take that time. You can't really do much in a year. So he's coming in with a bad roster. They'll have some picks, but give him a little bit to build. And if he doesn't work it out in the next 3 years, then let him go. But at least let him get in there and fight a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously you've seen how Zach Taylor's turned around. Year two. So it's pretty crazy. But going back to the David Culley thing, I mean that was gross. I'm not happy that happened. He was not given a fair chance. Do I know how good of a coach he was? Not really. Wasn't really watching the Texans a ton. I mean, kind of like JB with you said with the Jaguars, we kind of saw them with Hard Knocks in the division a little bit, but they weren't good. So you didn't really give him a fair shot. And then going back to Lovey, I mean, my preamble of the question wasn't trying to slander Lovey. I mean, the man went to a Super Bowl with the Bears. I think he's a good coach, but I was a little surprised by the hiring. But I'm also, I'm happy he's getting another shot. I think he deserves it. He's been through, he's been through a lot with a lot of different teams and college, like we talked about. So I'm happy for him. I hope the Texans give him a fair chance, Cope, like you said. They have picks finally. They didn't trade the farm for Laramie Tunsil again, or something similar with Bill O'Brien. That was so bad. The D-Hop trade and the Tunsil trade. I can't get over that. But yeah, I mean, I really do hope they build a quality roster around him. And I don't know if Nick Cassero will, but we will see what happens. And the other thing is, we'll touch on this a little bit, maybe not go into extreme detail, but this goes without saying, but I don't think Brian Flores should have gotten fired from the Dolphins. I mean, he was a good coach. Obviously I don't think he was going to be Belichick, even though he came from Belichick. Nobody's Belichick, but it was just an egregious situation. So if we want to touch on that a little bit, Cope, we'll start with you. Like your reaction when that happened, and then I guess with the suit too. Like, tell me what you were thinking.
Yeah, I was shocked to see that he got fired from there. He went into that situation knowing that the first year wasn't they were going to have no type of success. It was strictly the build for the future. They were trading Tunsil. They were moving guys to bring in picks. They had 3 first rounders in his first year. So, I was shocked to see him go because I really thought he was laying the foundation for a good team. The defense is playing hard. They had some good pieces on offense. Obviously, Waddle was a terrific pick that they traded up to go get. Gesicki's been really good. They've been adding draft picks to the offensive line. I really, I can't find a reason why he would have been fired. I think he's a terrific leader. The players play hard for him. They take to him even during the year where 2 years ago they had Fitzpatrick and Josh Rosen playing. Those guys were playing hard every week and they were able to win some games at the end of the year. So I'm shocked. I'm shocked to see him go. I don't really feel there's a need for the Dolphins to set themselves back even more. Ironically though, I do like the hire of Mike McDaniel. I think he's actually going to be a really good coach there, but shocked to see Flores go, and even more shocked that, he wasn't able to get on his feet somewhere else because I think he's definitely deserving of a job elsewhere.
Yeah, no, I mean, for me, it's just definitely a weird time to start that out with. It's something that gets talked about every single year. You expect it to change, but it doesn't. I think the misconception, if you really look into it, he got fired because he was black. And especially as a black man, I will absolutely say that's not the case. You look into it, there were things and more things coming out, as we all know now, that were going on that just didn't coincide. Now, I will say in comparison, I think that there's a difference in the margin of error as a black man, especially as a head coach, than anyone else. And I'll put it in comparison to Doug Peterson, again, as an Eagles fan, where we knew there was that back and forth because of ego issues, stuff going on with the GM, whatever the case may be. And we went through about a year and a half, 2 years of dealing with that beforehand, as opposed to Brian Flores with, yes, it was a problem with the GM and the way things weren't going on and their disagreements, but it was like, okay, you're not agreeing right now. Now you get cut, as opposed to let's try to work it out. And I think that's where the problem needs to change. It's always the standards, to say everything, no pun intended, is just black and white, would be a complete lie and, just a mishap on our mistakes. But there are underlying factors and underlying issues for somebody who is a tremendously great coach. And for whatever reason, he's not landed back on his feet as all this stuff unfolds legally. You hope that it's not still the things that we talk about and not the things that are going on in the world that are occurring. But I mean, it's just the world we live in. We're constantly making change. We're growing and still making change, but we have things that we have to get through. And, regardless of how this happens, I'm glad it's coming out in the way it is, just because it's starting a conversation. Don't want anyone to, get in trouble, get harmed by it, but it's starting a conversation that I believe Brian Flores, he said it on ESPN and said that he might not ever get a coaching job again. And he's okay with that if it changes something for the future of everybody else, is what all we can do is sometimes.
Absolutely. I mean, I was shocked by it just from a football performance perspective because, Cope, like you mentioned, in that season, they were predicted to go 0-16, 1-15, 2-14, whatever it was, and they ended up winning 5 games. And, that's not a lot, but with that roster that they had, and they were throwing out Josh Rosen and Fitzpatrick, though Fitzpatrick sometimes is really cool. But, it wasn't a good roster. Like they did not have, and they traded Minka and they traded Tunsil, like you had mentioned. So, and then they make the playoffs the next year. They damn near made the playoffs this year, even though they started off really slow. So it was shocking to see. And then obviously, all the stuff that came out it's been really sad. I wish better for him. I wish better for all black coaches who are trying to get a job as a head coach in the NFL, because obviously it's not something that is, really, really stuck to this point, and that's a shame. Obviously, JB, we talked about that, and I just hope this does change things. It's a shame that he has to die on the sword pretty much for this cause to come out, but I think it is something that will lead to change, and I'm hopeful of that because, Brian Flores is deserving of an NFL head coaching job, and I know there's a lot of other black coaches who are too, that maybe have not gotten their opportunity, or at least like a fair shot to get that opportunity. So I'm hoping this leads to something good, because it's a not great situation right now. But I do think that, obviously, I'm a little bit of an optimistic person, but I do think that it'll lead to something better in the long run. So yeah, and Cope, like you were mentioning, I do think Mike McDaniel's going to be a really good coach. I was going to mention that in the question before, but I really like him coming from the 49ers. I love their offense. So we will see what happens with that and everything else. And we will see what happens in Super Bowl 56 with the Rams and the Bengals. So that is all I got. Do you guys have anything else to close? Cope, we'll start with you.
We are 3 weeks away today from conference tournaments in college basketball. So just to keep your eyes peeled, because I love football more than anybody, but we have one more football game, and then for me, it's full-time college basketball season. So good things on the horizon. Obviously, with the Super Bowl, let's not look too far ahead, because we have one of the best sports days on our calendar coming up. But college basketball, all the good stuff is right around the corner.
JB?
No, yeah, man. First, just want to say thank y'all for having me on. Definitely a pleasure and a blessing, to talk about sports and, share our voices and have a good conversation. Yeah, it doesn't stop for me. Basketball is here, but football isn't over too. So, combine coming up, that's just as important to me as the actual season. But this is all year round. Sports are definitely a big deal. So, tune in, and definitely for my boy Kyle, keep on going. We're proud of you.
Appreciate you. I guess my last thing will be, I lied, first of all. I did have one more thing. Rob Manfred needs to get his head out of his ass. That's all I'm going to say. So on that note, we're going to pray the MLB season comes back soon. We're going to enjoy this Sunday for Super Bowl Sunday. And then we've got a whole bunch of collegiate and professional basketball and hockey. Let's go Rangers to follow up on. So on that note, that's all I got for real this time. Cope, thank you so much for rejoining me. I am very much looking forward to you coming back on future episodes as a recurring guest of mine. So love that. And JB, thank you for coming on this time. I really appreciate it. We'll definitely have to have you back too. This was a lot of fun. This is the first 3-person one I had, so I'm excited about that. We're gonna have to do more of these. But fellas, thank you both for coming on. You guys, thank you for tuning in again. As always, I appreciate it. There's going to be a lot more of this, so keep your eyes peeled for what's to come. Next week, we have another guest coming back for the second time, Nicky Ra. He's one of my best friends. He's an artist. He's got an album coming out in a couple weeks, so I'm excited to talk to him about that. And until then, enjoy life, I guess. I don't really know what I was going with there, but enjoy life. That's a great message. So I'll see y'all later.